If I asked you right now to identify how you're feeling, could you answer? Could you use a feeling word besides happy, sad, or mad? If you're here in midlife, along with me, you have had achievements to be proud of. But over the past few years, you've had to deal with professional, personal, and physical challenges that you didn't expect. You find yourself almost sleepwalking through some of your days, or just watching the clock until it's time to avoid your worries with wine or Netflix. Or maybe you know venting can be healthy, so you're venting all over the place all the time. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you why actually identifying and accepting how you're feeling on the good days and the bad gives you the power to figure out what is making you feel that way and change it if you want to. It's like a superpower. That's coming up next, right here on Mind Your Midlife. Stay tuned. Welcome to Mind Your Midlife, your go-to resource for confidence and success, one thought at a time. Unlike most advice out there, we believe that simply telling you to believe in yourself or change your habits isn't enough to wake up excited about life or feel truly confident in your body. Each week, you'll gain actionable strategies and, oh my goodness, powerful insights to stop feeling stuck and start loving your midlife. This is the Mind Your Midlife podcast. Oh my goodness. Hello. Welcome to Mind Your Midlife. I am so excited that you're here and listening. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about where this podcast is headed. Wow. All right. So let's dive in. Episode 1. Here we are. We are talking about emotions, and the reason that this is a powerful topic for me is I really have struggled with this. When I was in grad school many years ago, I struggled with eating issues, and I was going to counseling, and that's a story for another day, most likely. But the counselor over and over was asking me, how did I feel about a situation that we were talking about? How did I feel? What was the feeling? She wanted me to name it, and I couldn't. I really struggled. It was as if everything was just kind of status quo, a 0 on a number line. I couldn't feel at all. Now, that's an extreme example, and that was a sign that I was blocking all of that emotion from being expressed, which is not healthy. And we were talking about hard things, of course, but it really stuck with me that it was so important that I could actually recognize what was I feeling. Now, if we fast forward, as you heard me say, a lot of years, now I'm in the phase where you might be. Aging parents, one of them, in my situation, has a debilitating disease. There's so much stress and emotion around that. And I learned that if I can recognize the times when I'm feeling sad and I let myself feel it and I understand why, what is the cause, then I can move through it and feel better, at least for a little while. And it's such a powerful thing to learn. So, what does all of this mean? In midlife, whether you're in your 40s or your 50s, a lot of change happens. Change in our bodies, change in our just living situations of all different sorts, great and not so great. And all of that creates emotion. We have a lot of emotional complications during this period of life. And there are always, for each of us, going to be beliefs that we hold, subconscious beliefs that affect how we experience or how we show emotion. So let me give you an example. These are things that you would have picked up from other people in your life, maybe when you were young, maybe as you were growing up, that you believe, your mind holds on to, but maybe you don't even realize. That's kind of how I would say to think about subconscious beliefs. So, for example, maybe you believe subconsciously that successful or sophisticated people don't show emotion. It's weak to show emotion. that could be hidden in there for you and cause you to really kind of push that emotion down. Maybe you believe that we should never wallow. Wallowing maybe is a sign of weakness, or, let's what is it? Pick up the bootstraps, pull up the bootstraps. That's what it is. And just get to it. Stop wallowing. Put those emotions aside and move forward. So there are going to be beliefs in your mind that are affecting you and maybe causing you not to really allow yourself to experience emotions related to what's happening in your life right now. So what is happening in your life right now? Well, change happens at a fast pace during midlife. If you have kids, your kids are growing up and they're moving out, most likely, or they're getting ready to, or they're at least creating more of an independent life for themselves. And that is going to give you just a whole set of complicated thoughts and emotions. And there's a reason why there are books and podcasts all about empty nest. It's a complicated period of time. Also, your body's changing. And I don't believe, and I don't want you to believe, that when you hit midlife or menopause or perimenopause, you just have to give up and that's it. We're going to wear a muumuu forever. I don't believe that. I don't want you to believe that. But it's true that your body is changing. And there are going to be emotions potentially that come up about your self-image. Because no matter what we actually look like to other people, and definitely no matter what size we wear, because you can be about 27 different shapes and all wear the same size, there's always going to be a self-image in your mind that is what you believe yourself to look like and what you believe yourself to be good at or bad at. And we're going to have emotions about that because it's going to be changing. Now you may have aging parents. And of course, you're lucky if your parents are still around and involved in your life. And at the same time, parents aging brings with it lots and lots of emotional complications. You may be mourning the relationship you once had with your parents. You may be actually mourning them if you're losing them. You may be helping with finances and housing and living, and just the role changes so much. There's a lot going on there. And then maybe you're looking towards retirement. Maybe the end of your career is in sight. Now, when I say that, that seems kind of exciting to me initially. And I hope for you, as you think retirement, that maybe you're thinking travel or relax or do things you've always wanted to do. And at the same time, it might be a scary thing. Maybe it's scary to think about choosing what you want to do, where you want to live, how's it all going to work. Maybe you're not used to having free time. And even though free time sounds good, if we don't know how to use it or we're not used to it, it can be very intimidating. So there are emotions happening for all of those things. And I don't know if you've ever heard the term sandwich generation, but when we hit midlife, this is often what we are. We are the middle of the sandwich. And we have our parents on one side and our kids on the other side, or aunts and uncles, or nieces and nephews, or whatever the relationship is. And we are potentially taking care of both, stuck right in the middle. And while that can be a great thing because maybe these relationships get stronger, it also can be a very hard thing. And there are going to be emotions about that. So, where do these emotions come from? Because what I want to share with you in this Mind Your Midlife podcast is not necessarily tips for new habits that you can add into your day. We don't need to be adding a new habit every week on every podcast episode into your day. By the time we get through our first year, you won't have time in your day for anything but new habits. What we need is to understand what is going on in our brains that is directing how we're experiencing life during this period of life that can be pretty tumultuous, ups and downs and sideways every day. And we're trying to figure it out on our own while helping other people. So, where do emotions come from? What I didn't realize for a long, long time is that emotions are created in response to the stories that we are telling ourselves in our minds. Now, if you have a situation that is very obviously a sad situation, you're attending a funeral of someone that you are so sad to have lost, obviously you're going to have sadness as your emotion. And still the same thing applies because you are sad because in your brain, you're telling yourself that you're going to miss this person so much. If you're happy, not in that situation, but in whatever other situation, you're happy because in your brain, you're telling yourself, this is amazing. Wow, this is amazing. Wow. And your brain tends to go on repeat like that. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. So it's the thoughts, the stories, I usually call them, because we create these thoughts ourselves, that are then creating the emotions that we feel. And oftentimes, we're telling ourselves some stories about what's happening that also include telling ourselves how we should feel and what should be happening. And the shoulding, there's a layer of maybe guilt or shame in there, and that creates some complication as well. So we have a story going through our mind, it creates an emotion, we feel that emotion, and then that affects the actions we take in the world. That's the cycle: stories, emotions, action. Now, just because I'm calling them stories doesn't mean this is a bad thing. This is simply how our brains and bodies work. So no judgment. This is just how our brains and bodies work. When a situation happens in your life, let's say you get a promotion at your job. We are not all at retirement age yet, right? You've just gotten a promotion at your job. That's the situation. That is a factual thing. You have gotten a promotion. Then your brain interprets that and has thoughts about that. And the stories in your brain come from the fact of the situation, you got a promotion, and from beliefs that you have from your whole life of experience. And we have a lot of experience, right? And that story puts together all of that. So you might be telling yourself, I got a promotion. Am I going to be able to do this job? And this thought might be running on a loop in your brain all day. Am I going to be able to do this job? I got a promotion. Am I going to be able to do this job? I got a promotion. Am I going to be able to do this job? You get what I'm saying. It's not a fact. It's a worry maybe, or it's a story about something that hasn't happened yet. Or it's a concern that doesn't necessarily have a foundation in factual truth. That's something that Brené Brown writes about. Is it a fact, this story running in your brain? Because if it's not, you could change it. But I get ahead of myself there. Let's stick with it. I got a promotion. Am I going to be able to do this job? You are going to feel something because of that story going in your head. And that one feels a bit mixed. Maybe you're going to feel some excitement about the I got a promotion part. And then, am I going to be able to do this job? That feels like a little bit of worry, trepidation. And notice I'm trying to use actual emotion words because a lot of times when we want to figure out how we're feeling about something, we use sentences instead of emotion words. How am I feeling about that? Well, I'm feeling like it's going to be okay after a while. Well, that's not an emotion. Maybe you're feeling cautiously optimistic. Maybe you're feeling content. Maybe in my example, you're feeling excited and also worried. Those are emotion words. So that creates how we act. If we're excited about this promotion and we're worried, we're a little bit scared and fearful about whether we can do it, then the way we're going to act in our job situations is going to be with a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of fear, a little bit of hesitation. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is all authentic. What I'm saying is, if we can recognize it and understand it, then we get to choose whether to hold on to those emotions or whether to try to make a change, because the choice is your power. So let's look at this from another angle. Why do we need to talk about this? Why do we need to recognize emotions? What is the point? Well, if we bury emotions inside and we don't at least recognize them consciously, we don't maybe let them out. Sometimes you need to laugh. I say laugh as much as you can. Sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes you need to go walk it off. When we bury our emotions inside, it creates all kinds of stress in the body. There are hormonal disruptions that I'm sure you've heard about, cortisol levels going crazy. There are lots of different hormonal disruptions that happen when we bury that emotion deep in the body. And our nervous system is going to have something to say about this as well. Your nervous system can be in a sympathetic state or a parasympathetic state. And I always find these terms a little bit hard to differentiate. So what this means is the parasympathetic nervous system is where you want to be as much as you can. Sometimes people call this the rest and digest system. This is when your body is relaxing after a stressful or a dangerous situation. So the parasympathetic nervous system is going to slow your heart rate to a comfortable rate. It's going to digest everything properly, and it's going to help with all the processes your body needs to be doing to keep you alive. Then we have the sympathetic nervous system. And this is the nervous system that is up for a fight. If you've heard of fight or flight, of course you have. Now we say fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Had to pause and slow down to be able to say those. Our body knows it's under stress or danger. The sympathetic nervous system activates. So your heart rate speeds up, your breathing rate speeds up, and your body physically is delivering more blood to areas of the body that need more oxygen. So you maybe are sweating, your metabolism is changing, there's a lot of kidney activity, a lot of variability in all your body systems. And unfortunately, what sometimes happens is we spend too much time with the sympathetic nervous system running things and not nearly enough time with the parasympathetic nervous system running things, because we spend a lot of time in this sort of medium stress state. And if we're bearing emotions inside and holding on to them, even if we're trying really hard in our conscious mind to ignore them, ignore. Yes, no, I'm feeling great. I don't have any issues. We're ignoring. Your body knows. Your body physically knows that that emotion is there. And if you're into that sympathetic nervous system being in control, maybe you're freezing in the face of a challenge. Maybe you're fighting. Maybe you're fawning, which means you are kind of laying down and letting everything else run over you. Maybe you're fleeing. So all of that, it's a hormonal mess. And maybe we need another episode on exactly how that works. So I will keep that in mind and make a note. So we see, hopefully, with at least that basic, that we do need to recognize our emotions. But I don't want to tell you that there's lots more to-do items that you need to add to your day. And I know that if I'm sitting here telling you, not if, while I'm sitting here telling you that you need to feel your emotions, some of those don't feel good. If you have situations going on in your life right now where you're feeling scared or nervous about them, or you're feeling frustrated with someone or with a situation, of course, we probably all have situations like that, and midlife is not a picnic every day. I'm telling you, you need to feel those, and you're saying to me, it doesn't feel good. I don't want to feel those. Well, the reason that we need to feel those emotions is because it actually helps them to dissipate, to get better, to flow through and go out of you faster than if you try to bury it. We're going to avoid the sympathetic nervous system running our lives every day. We're going to allow the emotion to come out, and it doesn't necessarily come back. And if it does, it doesn't come back in the same intensity about the same situation. It's a cleanse almost. And we can do that even by recognizing the emotion. So, not adding more to-do items to your day, but I am going to recommend that you learn to pause for a moment every now and then. So, when you are feeling just a little bit off, you'll recognize it sometimes during the day. I remember, this was months ago, but my office in our house used to be on the bottom level. And so I was walking up the stairs one day out of my office, and I just paused on the stairs and I thought, I feel kind of annoyed. And I had to sit there for a moment and think, why do I feel annoyed? Who am I annoyed at? What's going on? And what I was doing was kind of looking around in my brain, looking for what are the thoughts I'm having that are making me feel annoyed. And it took me a moment, but I figured it out. I was running a loop in my brain about someone who I thought had done something, and it wasn't even for sure. I wasn't even sure they had done it, but I was already annoyed. I was ready. So when you have a moment in your day, pause, ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And maybe it's great. Maybe it's not so great. Maybe it's frustrated, sad, scared. Maybe it's excited. Maybe it's happy. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And then see if you can figure out what you're telling yourself in your mind that created that feeling. Don't spend more than a moment or two. But if you can do this occasionally, when you have a moment and you think of it, it's surprisingly healthy for your body and for your emotional state. Because if you can identify the stories that are creating the emotions that you don't want, and let's add the stories that are creating the emotions you do want, because you want more of those, that is the first step in healing those emotions. You're teaching your body and you're teaching your brain that it's okay to recognize the emotion. It's okay to feel it. And most powerful piece here, it's okay to question the thought that created it. Maybe it's not true. Oh my goodness. That's my OMG moment. Recognizing your emotions is a superpower. Often, those thoughts that are creating the emotion that you're feeling right now are not true. And even just recognizing that allows you to have a little bit of a mind and body reset. Be patient with yourself as you try this. It sometimes is tricky to recognize what am I feeling right now? Just try it. Gradually start to learn how to recognize what emotion's going on with you right now and what is the thought in your brain that was causing that. And OMG, it is powerful. Wow. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of Mind Your Midlife. I am thrilled that you're here. What can you expect going forward with this podcast? We're going to talk midlife stuff. You know, there's so many things we're going through during this phase. We're going to talk about it. We're going to figure out how to go, I like to say, behind the curtain, my little Wizard of Oz reference, and get inside our brain, figure out how we can go through these things in the best, healthiest way possible, and do it without adding 27 new steps to our day. So, if you want to take the next step in healing your thought emotion cycle, like we've talked about today, I want you to go to CherylPFisher.com/storycycle. That Fisher is spelled with an SCH, and the link will be in the show notes. And download my free Story Cycle resource. It will really help you with what I've been talking about on today's episode. I want you to feel your emotions. And I also want you to catch those sneaky thoughts that are creating the ones that you'd rather let go. Are you loving this show? If you are listening on Apple, scroll down right now in your podcast app and leave a rating and a review. That would be amazing. Now, make sure that you've hit the follow button, because on the next episode, my guest and I are talking about the power of forgiveness, and we mean forgiving yourself and forgiving the situations you've been in and doing it for your own health and happiness. This is not the forgiveness you've heard about before. So, oh my goodness, let's keep creating confidence and success, one thought at a time.